Hello guys and welcome back. So now we're going to recreate that mask that we did in SOPs in DOPS here. And I run a couple of frames just to show you guys the mask in SOPs at a high resolution so we get a better idea. So this is frame 7. Let's go high res. And you can see we have very interesting mask, and this way we're not going to harm anything about the sim. We're going to create a very well integrated mask. We can, for example, isolate the mid section here, which is very interesting part to control, because whenever we have a rolling shape, the stuff behind it should behave in a very interesting way as well. And this mask can be used in so many different ways. We can use the green channel, for example. Let me actually change a few things. I can work with the ramps to better isolate certain parts. So for example, let's say we make something like this, and now we have that section. Okay, we can use that to control a different noise pattern, for example, or we can dissipate it in that area faster, or we can make it longer, or we can make it hotter, or we can do any kinds of we can control the sim in any way we want using this information. Okay, and this is again built off two things that are primarily coming from the sim, which is the gradient and the velocity, and there will always be a coherence between how these fields evolve in the sim. Okay, let's dive inside, and let me lower this to 2. Let's run a couple of frames. Okay, cool. Everything is working. And what I'm going to do is, like we did with the field, with the temp val field, I'm going to create a color field. And the reason for this, I want to use it to show you guys how the data looks like, and then we're going to use a certain part of it to control the sim. So I'm going to copy this. I'm going to create a merge first. I don't want to change the order of things. So I'm going to add a merge here, and now we can copy this and add it. I'm going to create a color field, and the name can be anything. It doesn't have to be color. It absolutely means nothing. And it's going to match the velocity because it's a vector field. And then let's see, everything is the same. We're going to go into this gas field VOP, and let's import the velocity, which we have somewhere. So let's import the val. Okay, and then let's import the gradient, which is stored here at the moment. Okay, and we're going to compute the dot product between these two guys. So gradient, the velocity, and let's normalize both of them. So I have a normalize here, and I'm going to bind export this as the color after I plug in a ramp. Let's plug in a ramp, and this is the vector. Perfect. And for the ramp, we're going to set it to 1 here, and then blue here. The center. And this should not change anything. Now we have to make sure that we also advect this new guy, this new field. So I'm gonna add a merge node and add this guy. And we also have to make sure that when we change the smoke settings, sorry I didn't mention this earlier, when we change the advection method, these guys have to match as well. So we'll link them later when I change the settings. Okay, so we're not going to do anything. Let me go back and hit play. Nothing should change. Cool. So the data is available, and if we middle click, we should see a new field added. So that's the color. The other field, the temp, we don't see here is because it gets deleted after it gets used. So we clear it out. It doesn't accumulate in the sim, which saves memory basically. Okay, so the way we can visualize data here is by attaching a node to the data itself. And to visualize vector fields, we're going to use a vector field visualization, and we're going to connect that to the gas match field. I know the order doesn't make a lot of sense, but this is how it works. And then for float, there is a scalar field visualization. So we can use that when we have a float. And I'm going to use smoke and show guide geometry. And let me turn off everything else. I don't want to accumulate the other fields. And this should show. And this should look correct. Okay, let's see. I was expecting to see colors, so let's see why this is not the case. Okay, that looks correct. This is correct. This is correct. The dot product result. This guy. This is good. So the dot product result gives something that goes between -1 and 1. So let's fit range that. Between -1 and 1. And then let's make sure we don't have any other ramps. So I'm gonna rename this to something else. And I don't think this will affect, but let's just make sure. Okay, gets affected by the velocity. Okay, let's hit play again. Oh, I know why, because we were looking at this guy. Sorry. Yeah, I need to turn off this feature. Okay. So now we're looking at the entire data, and you can see it's filling the entire volume. And the reason for that is because the data is being computed everywhere. We're not constraining it to a specific field or telling it to only be applied in a specific area. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to dive inside the gas field VOP. I'm going to multiply this result by the density, so it only shows where we have density. So I'm going to multiply, put down a multiply node with the density, and let's drag this here. So we'll apply the color by the density, and then come on, and that should mask it properly. And we can change this back to vector. Okay, let's hit play. Cool, so now we have the data working as expected. And now we're viewing only this custom field that we've created. We're not viewing anything else. We can control it, we can do whatever the hell we want with it. And the next thing I want to do is I'm gonna isolate the, let's see which one. I'm gonna isolate the red. Yeah, let's isolate the red channel and use that as a multiplier. So I'm gonna put down a vector to float, and I'm gonna use the red channel. I'm gonna simply multiply that with this. So it's gonna only show up in where we have red information. And let me turn off the display here. And let's preview back our initial smoke. Cool. So it looks like we've lost a lot of information from there. So what I'm going to do is actually we didn't tweak the ramp because I renamed it. So let me fix this quickly. And we need to view it again. So let's view it. And let's turn off this so they don't overlap. Cool, so now it's much better. Okay, I think the red information is not enough. We're gonna lose everything. So what I'm going to do is I'm gonna shift everything to have only two colors. I'm gonna remove the red and I'm gonna remove the green. I'm gonna move the red. So let's do that. When you're lucky, you can get this to update without having to recook, but it's not always the case. Cool, so now I have only the stuff that is facing forward and the stuff that is facing backward. And this is very cool mask because now I can go in and use that stuff that is inside the sim and create another gas field VOP that has a different noise pattern and use that to as a mask, and only create, for example, a different noise pattern or a noise that has a higher frequency and only happens in certain areas. It doesn't happen across the entire sim. So we can get more variation, and being able to drive the data, the volume inside the sim itself, not the layer, creates a very interesting effect, because if you start bubbling the interior of the sim and disturbing that, when the sim rolls, it's going to reveal that that interior details, and it's going to be very interesting as well. So unfortunately, I'm not going to be able to cover all this. As you can see, the sim is not super fast, and hopefully you guys will be able to explore some of these ideas, and we'll try to do some more of this as we progress through the course as well. Okay, so I think we're good now. The only thing I'm going to change is I'm going to fit range. I'm going to fit range the blue. I don't want to multiply and set that to black. So I'm going to fit range the blue channel, green, blue, and I'm going to say it goes between 0.2 and 0.2. So it doesn't destroy the noise at the blue areas completely. We still get 20% of that. We can increase this as well. So now that is a multiplier. And let's turn off the smoke. And let's display back our smoke. Okay, let's hit play. Cool, so you can see now it's only happening at the front. And we're not changing. See how this back of the sphere is not being affected, or it's probably being affected just a tiny bit. And this is going to help a lot, because anything that is left behind is going to have less noise, which feels much more realistic, because the smoke, when it pushes through, it interacts with the airfield, and that creates shadowing for the details behind it. So most of the time when you see a mushroom, the things that are happening at the top or the shell are not the same that is happening at the stuff underneath it. And this effect is going to help a lot with that as well. Cool, so I think it's working very well. It's probably too aggressive, but I'm gonna leave it at that. Now the last thing I'm going to do is I'm gonna copy these guys. Actually, I'm going to link these two as well. Let me disable the cooking. Okay, and let's set this to 2. And let's copy this guy. Set it to BFECC. This is to clamp, and these two guys the same. Let's copy this. Okay, and the last thing I want to do is I'm gonna clear the color field as well, because we don't need it. So we're just doing some cleanup here, nothing else. And I'm gonna increase the resolution to 0.08 here, we have 0.002, and let's see how high that is. Okay, I think that should be fine. So I'm gonna run a sim and then we'll take a look at it in the next video. Thank you guys for watching, and see you in a bit.